too threatening. I'm a pretty small force in the game.
So welcome back, everybody. I'm Judith Koba. The beautiful lady next to me is Kelsea Ray, and her website is returningtoinnocence.ca, and she works as a transformational catalyst. So, Kelsea, welcome.
Thank you, Judith. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Kelsea, what is a transformational catalyst? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so, I call myself a transformational catalyst because I feel like I hold a beautiful space where women or men can come and go and dive deep into their subpersonalities, their subconscious, unconscious personalities, and discover who they truly are through the process of integrating them back into wholeness. And so I use an approach that is very integrated in a holistic way that allows my clients to see all aspects of themselves, the shadows that might be lurking in the background, and help them, learn to love those parts of them. And I feel that's one of the greatest ways that we can transform our lives is through that path of embodying all aspects of ourselves, the pieces that we've fragmented or have forgotten. And so I've just seen my clients have such deep transformations and working together. And part of my work, I was working with Sienna Leah for some time, and I'm not working with her anymore as it just felt that my time was over with my relationship with her in that sense. But part of her training was to become a transformational catalyst, and I just really loved the ring of it, so I kind of adopted it.
A while ago, I released my interview with Sienna Leah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So the reason why I invited you was we wanted to talk a little bit about cults. And you have a personal experience. So could you explain to us a little bit how you got in contact with them, how you ended up there? Yeah, for starters.
Yeah, for sure. So at the time I was doing women's work, I was helping women become more sexually empowered, helping women heal their sexual traumas, heal any shame or any distortions they were carrying around their sexuality. And during one of my sessions, I was guided to connect to the womb of my client and kind of take her on a journey to see what was stored in her womb and any traumas that were there. And through that process, I realized that there was so much wisdom to the womb that I had even not experienced. And so I had looked on Google womb wisdom, and I came across that organization, that group, and right away it felt that I needed to take this program because I was hungry and thirsty for this knowledge. And it just felt really in alignment with kind of the next phase of my own transformation. And so I basically, said yes, jumped head first. And the first kind of part of the journey was to purify oneself. And so we went through a practice of 40 days where we were repenting for our sins. And I find that this is often something that manifests in cults is kind of black and white. If you're not living your life in this way, you are wrong and out of alignment, and you have to live this way. And so it was very much connected to the Christ lineage and kind of the path of purity, so to speak, and that which there is truth in that, in order to heal our wounds, we have to look at the places where we have been out of alignment. And so at the same time, it was really beneficial for me because a lot of the ways that I wasn't living truthfully to my own soul and to myself were becoming exposed. But it was also a tactic that I recognized was used to start controlling the woman in the group and kind of playing on our vulnerabilities. And they were receiving information from us at the beginning so that they could use it against us in the future. So this group was generally all women teachers, and it felt like it was really safe and supportive, and we were all being held in a beautiful way. But it wasn't until that I got connected to the main kind of pillar of the work, which was a man, and he's the one that, you know, brought forward the whole teaching, and he kind of had his inner circle of women that were doing his work for him. And so he kind of hid off in the distance, which I find is also something that these cults will set up, is that inner circle, so that they don't look like they're, you know, a part of it, but they're definitely the creator or the head leader of these organizations. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay, so I would say that cults do not necessarily target stupid people. I think one of their goals is to grab smart people with a lot of empathy, that 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 would like to have some kind of specific knowledge, as in your case. And I guess what I'm aiming at is, if you have ever been in a cult or you still are in a cult, don't think you're a stupid person. That's, you know, like, I fell for that.
Yeah. Well,
No,
that's
no.
yeah.
They know how to target intelligent people, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You know, and I feel that they're targeting people that yearn for that sense of belonging. Like the people that do get involved in cults may have vulnerabilities, and these, you know, targeting cults know how to pull them out, and they can recognize the people that they're interested in. There's a whole, you know, contract and sort of an entrapment of agreement as well. But I think that goes on a deeper level, energetically, with the certain energetic contracts that we have to these, if we get involved deeply in these cults and with certain leaders of the group. But you know, it's definitely not stupid people. And the whole taboo thing is like, oh, I got into a cult, I can't believe how stupid I am. And I've had people look at me and are like, how did you put up with that? But the manipulation, it's so subtle that you don't even realize that you're being played and manipulated until you get so deeply invested that you can't pull the veil off. And it's so slow, and it's so methodical, and you don't even realize how you're giving yourself up to be a part of this organization or cult. It's quite deceptive. And I feel the cults that are, you know, manifesting in today's world, they have gained more power covertly and are becoming, you know, the kind of the false gods, or these entities and negative forces that are working behind these narcissistic leaders. They're becoming more advanced because, you know, as we progress, our parasitic mind is also growing, and we're all kind of getting woven into this web of deceit in our world today. And I mean, cults are everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
And I would even say very blatantly, to me, the Catholic Church is one of the biggest cults.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, not all cults are seemingly negative either. There's some really positive, reinforcing cults out there, but people still get sucked into them and will spend their life's earnings, you know, believing that they're making a difference. And it might be an innocent cult, not like the ones where people are committing suicide and there's, thousands of people choosing to take their lives as part of this cult, so there's different varying degrees. But yeah, it's just important to know what they are and who's out there and what to watch out for.
Yeah. Can you recall the moment where you thought something is wrong here?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. It was the moment that this man kind of placed himself upon me sexually,
Mm-hmm.
and he was my teacher, and I was quite taken into shock. But the way that he coerced me into believing, to making me believe that I was his lover and that we were, soulmates waiting for each other since our lifetime in Egypt. I mean, the inflation of the Egyptian archetypes and the story of, Akhenaten and Nefertiti and
Mm.
the priestess temples. And there were so many, archetypal inflations that he was able to use to reign power over many women, and depending on their own past lives and their own connections, they were either severely affected by it or not, and I was definitely one of those ones that kind of got roped in, and I believed him. But the next day, like, I just remember feeling like something's not right. But it was like something had come into me, that it was like the spirit had been transferred. I was taken over by this entity, this force, and I was easily manipulated from that moment on. But there was many red flags. My soul was speaking to me and saying, this isn't right, but all the other carrots that were dangling in front of my face at the time just seemed much more tastier, and so I didn't listen to that aspect of myself. And so, yeah, it's fascinating looking back. If I could give any advice for anyone, it's listen to those red flags. Listen
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
And on a personal level, I would say if people tell you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If somebody is telling you, I am so selfish, believe them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't think I can change that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most likely not.
Yeah. And if people are also saying that they're something that he weaved in was that he was Judas. He told me he was Judas. I find a lot of cult leaders will proclaim that they're the next Christ, or, these amazing, almighty, powerful, spiritual leaders that are here to save the world, and that if you listen to them and follow them, that you'll be saved, and that everyone else outside of the group is spirit possessed or taken over by demons. And there's so many tactics that cults use to separate you from the world and make you believe that you're doing the good work, the only work, that's the narrow path, that you're the special ones that have been chosen. And no one
Yeah.
is special. That's something that we all need to come to terms with, and
Yeah.
anyone that tells you that you're special is, trying to most likely take you down a path of, using a path of deception, using love bombing and other manipulative tactics to kind of steer you onto their ship. And yeah, it's important that you watch out for those people too.
Mm. So, would you say that it's fair to say, like, being in a cult is a little bit like being with a narcissist?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the prerequisite to even become a cult leader, is to be a narcissist. You have to have I feel narcissists, they have that charisma, that spark. Everyone feels drawn to them. They could be amazing, amazing people, on the
Mm.
outside, and have so much intelligence and feel so empowering and supportive. And yet, underneath that facade, they're manipulating tactics and their abusive, selfish ambitions just, they start to really show over time. And yeah, there's so many different ways that narcissists and cults are very similar in the way that they love bomb you and then slowly break you down and
Mm.
make you feel like you're the biggest pile of shit on the earth, and they'll gaslight you and make everything that they're doing wrong seem like it's your fault, and that there's a lot of guilt and shame that they'll impose on you, and make you feel that it's all your fault. And
Mm.
yeah, it really is quite damaging
Yeah.
to
And
see.
before you know it, you will apologize for something that you
Absolutely.
do not even need to apologize for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Mm.
did that many times. And it was this spiral of apologizing and beaten down verbally, emotionally, psychologically, and then taken back into a place of love and, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I love you. I see you, again with the love bombing. Because at that point, you're so broken that you kind of want to run from the person, and yet they sense that. So then they come back with, no, I love you, stay. I see your beauty, I want to lift you up, I want to support you. And then it's this push and pull. And even
Mm-hmm.
that, you become addicted to that way of relating it. And that's, I think, how Stockholm Syndrome is formed within the victim's connection to the abuser. It's something that feels like home to them in a way after it's been done so many times, and they don't know how to escape, because if they escape, who's going to catch them? They've been pushed away from all their friends and family. They've been ostracized by their communities because they've chosen to be a part of this narcissistic relationship. And so, yeah, it's so vast, the levels of manipulation.
Mm. And I think that is what cults and narcissists do. They isolate you step by step from your friends, from your social contacts, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, another thing that all cults will tell you is this is the only truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you, as you said, you are so special to have found it. There is a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
Not recognizing that, as you said, everybody is special and nobody at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes there are promises connected to that, like, let's say, eternal life or life on another planet or going into the next dimension or whatever it is. So how did that play out in your case? Were there promises made?
Yeah, I mean, there was a hierarchical structure that was based upon evolving your soul.
Mm.
And the whole point of the journey was to come home to God, to be purified, to, you know, evolve into the higher dimensions of love, which, of course, is so beautiful in the sense that we are evolving souls. And if you do the work and you can be humble and come to terms with the places that are, not in integrity or not in alignment, then, your soul naturally will evolve into those higher spheres. Yet the hierarchical, steps and phases of the journey, if you're not in the third sphere, you can't become a teacher of this work, or if you're not in the second sphere, you're not as, enlightened as the ones that are still stuck in fear. And it was this way to kind of unconsciously or consciously um, separate the woman and form sort of a competition. And so you want to prove to yourself that you can make it to the next level. And so they play on your wounds of, or even just desires of wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, wanting to be seen as that, powerful individual that can push through and make it to the top. And you see this in a lot of pyramid structured cults as well. And so in that sense, it was all about evolving your soul, but it became this this way of also breaking us down. So we would be doing intense, practices. I was doing 8 hours a day where it was just meditation practice. I had no social life and hardly any sleep. It was like every day you're on your mat, you're doing your work, you're practicing and evolving. And that would break someone down. Over time it would break us down. We'd be doing exercises where we'd be standing in painful positions for 45 minutes, and there was grown older women in the course that their knees couldn't handle it, and it felt like that was a way of also breaking us down, physically exhausting us, but it was all for the evolution. It was all for us to connect to God in a closer way. And so, where is your devotion? Where is your discipline? And that's how it was kind of used in a way to break us down and manipulate us into believing that we were evolving. And in some way, I believe that we really were, but it was also keeping us roped into that cult, believing that if we weren't a part of that, that we wouldn't evolve, that we wouldn't be, on the narrow path doing the work. And if we questioned anything as well, we would be kicked out. So you could not question the authority of anyone. If you did, if you start to stir any sort of pot within the organization, they would remove people. So, you're too spirit influenced. You're not welcome in our group anymore. And this severely traumatized woman, because you're so conditioned, you're so like, you just believe that I'm the dirtiest, filthiest piece of shit. Like, actually, like there was a moment I remember I couldn't shower because I was made to believe that I had done something so detrimentally wrong to the universe, to the planet, that I felt like I couldn't shower because I was too dirty and that the water would burn. Like, it's amazing that I even, was able to be taken that far. But that's the level that these cults are willing to go to keep you involved in the work.
And who made the ultimate decision? If you, let's say you are now in circle 3, circle 2, circle 1, who was that and how was that decision made?
I'm not fully sure who made that decision. I think it was a felt sense amongst a few of the women teachers, as well as the main masculine narcissistic leader. So they were in contact with one another, and they would track the woman and what they were going through and who they wanted to become the next, teacher, or who was following in their footsteps in the best way. And I'm not too sure, but I think it was a way to kind of control people. And I don't know at the end of the day who made the call, but it was probably the man at the top. Yeah, it was so
that is also a hallmark of cults, that they have a group, and then within that group they have that very special group.
yeah. And that's what
And,
lures in. You know, I became a part of that special group, and it fed that part of my soul that wanted to be seen, that wanted to be known and validated for who I was. And so if there's any of those wounds of unworthiness or, you know, lack of self-esteem, I think that's also something they'll target is those individuals, because they can recognize that there is a weakness within them. Of course there's a lot of strength, and you know, obviously people are going through this initiation for a reason. But yeah, it's, what were you going to say? I think I cut you off there.
no, 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 no. That's okay. Um, was it considered to be let's say a blessing or a special treatment when you were allowed to be closer to the master?
Mm-hmm. um yeah, I mean, I felt so.
Hmm.
I find that there's a lot of mysticism involved in a lot of these cults, like mystic powers and higher levels of consciousness and awareness that you want to get close to. You know, you want to receive those powers in those different cities. And I think a lot of these leaders are taken over by darker forces that, you know, utilize black magic rather than pure and white magic. And so there's a luring into that energy. You know, you want to gain certain powers, but they're not always the purest in that sense. But yeah, there's, I mean, for me at least, I can speak to myself, there was certainly a desire to gain that power, to gain, you know, close enough energetic connection with the leaders so that I might, you know, receive something as well. And with him, he really promoted opening other women's wombs. And so that
And that
was,
means what?
it was kind of like a sexual coercion to get women to sleep with him.
Mm.
Like if you slept with him, your womb would be awakened because he had the pure divine lingam that could penetrate and blossom, you know, the yoni open and heal the wounds that were held in the yoni as well. And so that was a way that he was able to use his power to, you know, form sexual relationships with other women. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. there's so many, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah. Isn't there a better excuse for having a harem?
Yeah, mine is the divine and mightiest of them all.
um, what would you say is the appeal of cults? Is it for people who are in search for answers? Um, what is it exactly?
I think that's a big part of it.
Hmm.
I think it's also people that are, you know, desiring to be a part of community,
Hmm.
to be part of a tribe. There's, you know, in our world, there's so much separation. And I think when groups are formed, people naturally are drawn towards them because they have a instinct to come out of that separation. And I feel it's always through connecting and relating with people that we come out of that. And so I think it's a healthy desire to, yeah, be in a group, be a part of something. It's that belonging. We all have that sense of belonging. And I think from that place is where people can get hooked in. It could be that people want to grow their business, that they want to evolve spiritually, that they want to make it to the next level and become someone in the world. And yeah, I think belonging is really the biggest reason. And yeah, it could be that people are desperate, you know, that they just want to be a part of something.
Hmm.
And I couldn't imagine being a part of a cult where the leader, you know, makes people believe that if they kill themselves, they're going to be taken to a different world. And it's crazy, you know, like even here locally in Vancouver, there was the Nexium cult that had just recently been busted a couple years ago. And the women were literally branding themselves with cauterizing irons, and the sheer terror and pain that they went through for the sake of belonging and for the sake of evolving and becoming someone with more power. You know, it's insane what people would do to prove to the world or prove to themselves that they have what's in them to persevere and to make it to that next spiritual phase, or yeah, that next upper limit, I suppose. So yeah, be careful, you know. If I think we all have a sense of belonging, and you really have to watch and look at the people that are out there that are, you know, leading people. And if there's anything that doesn't sit right, run the other way, because with the epidemic that we're living in now, with these narcissistic psychopathic leaders, you know, medicine workers, I call them plastic shamans, you know, there's a lot of corruption that can happen in our communities. And so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that reminds me of, there is one gentleman on YouTube. He identifies as a narcissist,
Mm.
and he has written a couple of books, and he talks a lot about how narcissists ensnare you, how they groom you, what the devaluation phase looks like, what the discarding phase looks like, how to avoid a Hoover, and so on and so forth. And he always says, once you know, you go.
Yeah.
And there is no exception to the rule.
Yeah, it's great advice coming from a narcissist himself. Yeah, and they know it too.
Yeah.
Watch out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he differentiates a little bit differently. Usually you have these, let's say, overt, covert narcissists, but he divides them in lesser, the mid-range narcissist, and the greater narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And he always explains that the lesser and the mid-range, they do not know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the greater narcissist, he absolutely understands what he is and
Mm-hmm.
what he is doing. And and he identifies as a greater narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have this, you know, many narcissists try to turn it around and tell you, no, you are the narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he made one video that I found very, very interesting, where he explained, okay, so now you're in doubt and you ask yourself, am I the narcissist? And he said, the fact that you're even capable of asking that shows that you are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And that's the empath's natural approach or natural way, is to question themselves, because I find most people that, you know, come into face with a narcissist, there is a desire to grow. There's a desire to learn about themselves and, you know, look at themselves and do their work, versus the narcissist who isn't, you know, and they'll project that or gaslight the other into believing that it's all them, and it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, the narcissist is literally siphoning the energy of whoever they're with. And that's when they're almost offering back the light and the goodness and this connection. It's because the narcissist will like suck all the energy out of their lover or partner or, you know, follower, whatever it may be, and kind of reflect back that light and the love, and that's the connection that they're meeting with that person. It's actually the person's light that's being reflected back to them, because then the narcissist will just turn around and become angry or lash out, and that's their true nature, because it's almost like they don't have that love, they can't hold that within themselves, that it gets, the person gets attacked, and the person gets attacked for not, it's almost like for not um, giving the narcissist what he truly needs, because he can't hold on to that essence, because it's not truly his or hers, it's the victim's, or it's that person's. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what you think you see in the narcissist, what you think she is showing you, you are looking at yourself, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of like the love that, or that connection that you'll feel with the narcissist, but deep down they're so fractured that they don't truly have that within them. And I guess that's more so speaking to like a psychopath. I think I'm steering more towards the psychopathic narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll take everything outside of them and kind of become that, because they're so fragmented that there's nothing truly left within them. But yeah, it can be so gross, the level of awareness that they have, that they're literally harming someone,
Mm.
and they'll apologize for it, but they'll keep on doing the same thing over and over and over. Like when I had unraveled from this and the veil started coming down and the stories started coming together, and women from 10 years ago were coming forward with the same stories, the same tactics, the same breakdowns, and playing on their wounds, and even like verbatim telling women very similar things, calling them whores, and then building them up again and basically saying, you're a whore, but I have this, I'll show you, I'll guide you. And that was going on for 10 years, even before I had connected with him. And there was no change in pattern. It was the same across the board. And so they really are sociopaths in that sense. I find these cult leaders become addicted to the pain and the game that they're playing. It's really sick, but there's so much power in it for them, right? So why would they let that go? And if they let it go, what would they have to feel? All that pain and all that. Yeah, it's just disgusting what they've created and the trauma that they've formed in all these women and men's lives. I think it would just be too hard to bear it.
Mm. So then we have the field of finances.
Mm-hmm.
The members of the group, what did you have to do in order to keep the thing afloat?
Yeah, finances was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And um, in a lot of cases, they were kind of manipulating, kind of planting seeds for women to let go of their jobs,
Oh.
to let go of their husbands, to become more reliant on the work, so that you would become a teacher. And I think that's how you'd get sucked in. You would then become, basically a part of the group, and you'd be working your way into life and obtaining that structure. And so slowly, that's what happened to me. I was I wasn't told you need to let go of your work, but I was basically guided to let go of my partner, um, let go of my work, and I was I basically didn't move back to the city that I lived in. I stayed away. So they'll even make you move out of the country, and then you have no finances. So how are you going to pay for the program? You're going to show up through with your time, and they'll take care of you if you basically sell your life and your soul to these organizations. Or they'll push you, I think, in other places. If you're not making enough money, well, you're not doing enough, so fight to make it to that next level. Do this, this, and this, and do better. And you're not doing better, so there must be something wrong with you. Well, I have the medicine, I have the poison here, drink more, and we'll keep you in the group.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's fascinating. My finances dwindled. I was absolutely left with nothing. I had to start from scratch,
Mm.
and it was very hard, um, because you have nothing. You're completely stripped and left with, yeah, a fresh slate, which can be a blessing in a way,
Yeah.
but you're literally stripped of everything. Your identity. Often, they'll change your name. So I had changed my name to Shania,
Mm-hmm.
and many other women were also changing their name. And so it's literally like you're giving your identity up, your finances, your careers, your partners, everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I once got a Buddhist name, a Tibetan Buddhist name, but nobody uses that name, you know. So we all kept our names, and the name was given to you, and it usually expressed a quality that you have or something that you need to
Mm-hmm.
develop. Yeah. So,
Right.
but since nobody used that name and it was not made public, so I thought, okay, no problem. I'm no longer practicing Tibetan Buddhism, but it reminded me of that moment when I received my name.
It makes you feel special. It does give you another identity to almost cling on to. Did you find that as well?
No.
No? Yeah.
No, I was just, curious what
Right.
he would, but we were like, I don't know, like 50, 60 people who all received a name. And the way they do it is, okay, okay, they explain it like this. The Lama, he doesn't have to think about it. He just strips the information out of thin air, so to say. To him, it's perfectly clear that is your name. He doesn't have to think about that twice. And I was just very curious what he would call me.
Yeah.
But but other than that, it was okay. No, I had no weird attachments there. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but convincing people to give up their jobs, is that not detrimental to their finances?
I guess it depends on the nature of the cult. So some are, geared around finances in general and making more money and, making it to the next level of marketing. And so I think it depends how it's organized. But in this case, yeah, a lot of women were kind of losing their jobs, letting go of their jobs, changing careers, um, creating almost like a lack of stability so that they could control you a little more. But as well, it was important that you were there, supporting them financially too. And so, yeah, I think for other cults, it can be a thing where they will keep you on board and keep you, paying them or saying you have to give this amount of money to make it to the next level. And if you invite more people, will support you in making it to the next level. There's a whole recruiting
You get a
tactic.
10% discount.
Yeah. So I think there's many different ways. I'm not too well versed in the different cults that are out there, but I would imagine there would be something like that that happens. Yeah.
I'm not saying there will never be or there never is physical abuse in cults, but I find that emotional abuse is so much harder to prove. And that is one of the reasons why it's even harder to get over it. Because when you try to explain it to somebody who has no idea what is going on there, and you start talking, it might even sound as if that is not real, what you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did you cope with that?
Oh man, I mean, the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse, the way that they had us repenting, for our wrongdoings and weakening us and basically inviting our vulnerabilities forward. They were then able to kind of play on our vulnerabilities and reflect back our deepest wounds in a way that could control us. And through the different language that we were programmed with, and there was all this sorts of programming that tied into our emotions. And so after the veils kind of lifted, it was a lot of psychic mastery that I had to wield in regards to my emotions and where they would go to. And I had to gain power over my emotional reactivity to certain thoughts that would come into my mind and try to take me out of the truth. So a lot of it would come back to it being my fault. This is all my fault, that shame and guilt. I think that's one of the deepest levels of emotional abuse that cults will use, is guilting and shaming and inducing fear into their followers. And so for me, I had to filter out what was true and what was not. And for the longest time, it was challenging because I was easily swayed into the beliefs and programming that were deeply instilled in my 2 years that I was a part of that group. And a lot of the language that was used, I couldn't communicate to other people about it because that language wouldn't land for them or wouldn't quite make sense. It was like there was this wall of confusion that would come up, and it still does. If I'm venting or sharing something, they're like, wow, like, doesn't make sense. And so the people that were in the group understood what was happening, but outside of the group, it was really hard to kind of cope with and filter through the thought forms and the programs that were instilled both mentally and emotionally, because a lot of the work was to turn yourself inside out and feel the wounds, feel those vulnerabilities, and then they would play on those wounds. And so you couldn't decipher if it was your wound or if it was the manipulation, what they were trying to make you believe was wrong with you. It got so clouded, you didn't know what was true and what was false. So that was challenging. But over time, connecting with people, kind of grounding back into a reality outside of that group, and meeting with friends that were out of it, that that certainly helped reform my beliefs. And yeah, I was getting in touch with a new world, so to speak. So I think that's important, for people that are coming out of cults, is to get grounded in the reality of earth again. Come back down to earth and just be with people. I think a big part of it was just seeing what, the normal matrix world was like, because I was so far out there, that it was hard to kind of anchor back into the normalcy of it all.
Mm. Did you at one point confront the leader?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, how did that go down?
So there was a point where a lot of women were kind of, not a lot, but a few women were waking up to the deception. And I had just gotten back from a very traumatic trip in New Zealand with him. And I was just completely traumatized, completely broken. And I remember, as these women were unraveling, he was trying to pull me back in, because I was a huge kind of pillar of protection even for him. If I went back with him, then the other woman in the group would think that he was okay, or he wasn't manipulative, or but I remember calling him out and being like, you preach this, and yet you're the one that's spirit influenced, you're the one that gets angry irrationally, you're the one that this is all about. Basically, look at yourself, do something about this. This is sick. And basically, he received it. He played, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Please take me back. I want to come visit you. I'm going to change. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And then I was like, wow. Wow. And he's like, you're my guru. You're my teacher. Thank you. Bless you. And I was like, so proud of myself. I'm like, yay. Like, I'm getting through to him. Thank God there's something that's moving here. And so I invited him to come and visit me, and we opened up the space again. And as soon as he landed, about a week after, it just went back to the same patterns, and he was gaslighting me again and telling me that all these women coming against him and calling him out for being a narcissist was all my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all my fault that his work and his teachers were losing their work, essentially, or that the work was crumbling. It was all because of me. And I believed it, and he left. And again, I was broken down. And luckily, that was the last time. I never talked to him again after that. He tried to message me, sharing that, everything was brought into completion. And that was also a way that he would kind of lure me back, or lure other women back in, was everything's completed now. Everything's brought into love. Everything's, settled, and it's all done. Whatever happened, it's complete. And so you'd think, like, okay, like, maybe we can start fresh, or maybe there's a glimmer of hope there that,
Yeah, that would be the whole Hoover of the narcissist.
yeah. So it was that cycle over and over again. And I've completely just cut him out. Whenever I tried to connect, or whenever I was pulling women out or trying to connect with them, to kind of, because it was like I could see this big energy cloud of distortion and the energetics, and like these false gods that were feeding him all this false power, and essentially taking the power of the women that were involved in that group. And so I wanted to start pulling the woman out so that he would lose power over others. And every time I would do that, I would get attacked in my dream from him. He'd come in, and these spirits weren't happy. And so you have to be careful if you're gonna go towards the teacher and and try to take him down. It can be very dangerous. I experienced a lot of psychic attack. I was in the hospital with severe trauma, panic attacks. I didn't understand what was happening to my body. It can be quite dangerous depending on the caliber of sorcery that the spiritual leaders or teachers have. And I still have dreams. He still will try to float around in my dreams and create an emotional response out of me and try to weaken me. But you got to be diligent. That's for sure.
Stealing your identity. I guess that is a huge chunk of being in a cult. And grinding that down, that at the end of that process, you really have no freaking idea anymore what you are, who you are, what you stand for, what is going on, how did I end up here? And could you describe that process a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, when you're, at least in my experience, when you're giving yourself up to God and you're stripping yourself, you're shedding your old life, your identities.
You think you give yourself to God.
Sorry?
I said you think you give yourself to God.
Yeah, exactly. You think. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's, you think that you have to do that to give yourself to God, right? And for me, I went down so deep, the loss of my identity. I changed my name. I left my community. I left my family. I was told that my mother was Satan and that I could not trust her. There was nothing. And it was like, I remember he said, you have a choice. Are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill? And there was this alluring into change your life and come with me, and I'll give you everything that you ever desire. And it's this whole princess fairy tale programming that, I was completely manipulated by it. And I believed that, okay, if I give everything up, that I will be taken care of, that I will be provided for, and that I will find salvation. And so I think a lot of people will devote their lives to whatever work they're doing in these cults because they believe it's going to change the world, or they believe they're going to be picked up by the alien race that will take them to the next, multiverse of freedom. And it's profound what people will do when the end goal is so enticing. Yeah, slowly and slowly, you don't even realize how much you're giving up. It's very sly, it's very seductive, very alluring. But they dangle those carrots in front of your face, and it just is the best thing that's ever happened to you. I don't even know how that happened.
Would you say, I mean, that is a favorite subject of mine. I'm harping on it all the time because I think it's important. Would you say that as soon as you smell a savior program, walk the other way?
Yeah. Yeah. Or look within yourself and look at what part of you is connecting to that. What part of you is still feeding into that? Walk the other way, but also be curious why the heck you've, came to that relationship, or you've even contracted into an agreement with that dynamic. Because if you just walk away and don't face that truth of how that even manifested in your life, then you're just going to keep repeating it over and over again. And so I think that's where the work, and that's
I think that is work for later on.
Yeah.
Once you're finally out. But let's say it's the very, very early stages before you're really lured in.
Mm-hmm.
I think being aware of, savior program is
Oh,
probably,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and or okay, then it finally hits you. Oh no, there are no aliens coming whisking us away. Yeah. And even if, who knows, maybe they are harvesting us, and we all and we all think we are going to La La Land. Um,
Yes, watch out for the saviors that want to
mm,
take you into the next layer of dimensions and soul evolution. We can only save ourselves. And
yeah.
yes, there can be way showers, there can be catalysts, there can be people that are on the path that truly want to help others. And so, there are the wounded healers that, you know, are doing decent work, and yet then there's the ones that take it to the next level. And definitely keep your eye out for those, because if they say, oh, follow me, I'll save you, I'll take care of you, I'll do, you're protected from all evil, that's there's no truth in that.
Mm.
There's no real empowerment in that. There's only codependency and most likely narcissism and coercive manipulation to take over your identity and your life. And so, yeah, run the other way for sure.
Once you know, you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest, we have to figure that one out later.
Yeah.
Okay, so your identity has been stolen. You probably stripped of your finances. You may or may not have a job any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have been isolated
Mm-hmm.
from your former friends, family, whatever. So now, in that situation, when it finally dawns on you, oh boy, what have I done? How did I end up here? And you make that decision um, to go out. I mean, that is emotionally, psychologically, it's a very, very stressful situation because of all that is attached to it. No money, totally confused, isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would do you think some people shy away from that? And what would you tell them why it is still important to do that step?
I think many people shy away from that, and that's what keeps them in the cult. They've let go of everything, so there's nothing left in life for them. They can be so caught up in the fear-based mind control that they don't see what's on the other side of the veil.
Mm,
And so if I was to, approach anyone in a cult, I would give them a breakdown, of what the cult characteristics are. Because for me, I had no idea what a cult was until, I was kind of informed. And then, oh my gosh, it's written, it's right there. The
mm,
pathology of it is across the board. And so I think that's a big piece, is getting sober with the manipulation tactics that people use. And then, yeah, really just remembering that soul spark that is within you, that, divine creator, and that we are that divine creative power that we have within us to pick ourselves up and to create something new. For me, it was like the rug got swept out from underneath me, and I
mm,
got to see the spiritual distortion and deception within religious dogma. And it was a huge eye opener, and it was an initiation, that I had to go through to carry the wisdom that I have now. And so kind of repatterning or rephrasing my life and my reality and reframing it, I should say, to see the positive and to focus on what I'm building beyond that experience. And, you know, just taking it day by day. There was days where I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was an emotional mess, I think, for a year. I cried in my bathtub almost every other day. And I had to feel that pain. You have to feel that way you've been taken out of yourself in a way and stripped of your identity, and just return and take responsibility, you know, for how you allowed that to happen, and just get out in the world and try to connect in the grounded reality with people. Yeah, it's hard. I think also working with people that understand and have been through cults is something. Having that support system that can relate is really also helpful. Yeah, just remembering your strength. You know, you got in so you can get out.
uh, did you at least have a place to stay in the initial moments? I would imagine that is a huge stumbling block when you're trying, you know, okay, I walk out here, now what?
Totally. Yeah, it was a very humbling experience. You know, with my business, I was making thousands of dollars in a month, letting all that go and literally having no food in my fridge, having to receive support from family and friends that I had kind of reconnected with and shared my experience and what I had gone through. And there's a lot of compassion because I was able to shine light on my experience. I was lucky, like the universe, I feel, will always provide you with something, whether it's you have to be homeless for a month while you're just getting a job, or cat sitting for someone, or going back to your parents. Like I feel that for anyone that's coming out, there is a divine grace, or there is, you know, the universal energies of attraction that will support you no matter what. And as hard as it may seem, and as challenging as it is, you're going to get through it. And you just have to pick yourself up and carry yourself through it. And so, yeah, there was days where I was, you know, falling apart. I hadn't really the means to take care of myself, but I ended up, you know, finding work and building myself slowly again, getting my life together, and was able to afford rent and keep a job. And, you know, bit by bit, layer by layer, things started making more sense. And, you know, it's been 2.5 years, I think. 2017 was kind of the unveiling in August of 2017. And, you know, I'm doing great now. It's amazing how fast things pick up for you. And if you're willing to go deep and not run from the pain and not, you know, try to sweep it under the rug, you really have to face it and get the support. Yeah. But it's possible. Anything's possible. You have to have faith. You have to feel, you know, that strength within yourself. And I think the people that go through these experiences and get out, they're the resilient ones. They're the ones that have the strength, and it's their soul's essence that is guiding them. They're protected. And so always trusting that, and yeah, doing your best to shine light on it so others that are, you know, in this web of delusion can get out.
You touched on it a little bit, that because I was thinking, what is the intention, the motivation for the cult leader? But I think you're right when you said there are other entities working through that individual.
Hmm.
Um, how does that work?
Well, I feel there's, for every cult or every organization, there's an agenda clearly
Mm-hmm.
that they have within the organization. And on many levels, um, for example, if the cult leader, has an agenda to gain power over others and is using their spiritual powers and inner psychic gifts, to manipulate others, where are they getting these energetic powers from? Where are they getting their ability to manipulate in such a high level, covert, overt way? And our unconscious wounds and the spirits and thought forms and entities that are connected to those, they will naturally hook into the people that vibrate or have experienced similar relationships, and I find their upbringing, as children. For me, just an example, my mother and father combined were almost a spitting image when I looked at it sober of this cult leader,
Mm-hmm.
and so clearly there was some sort of contract that I needed to go through for my soul's, journey. And the entities that were connected to that, I was set up into that um, agenda based on my own wounding. And so these leaders, these spiritual leaders, especially, I find if they're not in alignment, there are energies. And even if they are in alignment, there are energies that will try to get under their skin, to manipulate them, to go down a darker path or become seduced by greed or lust or power. And as soon as they cave in, they're selling their life force to these entities and thought forms that are just going to take over. And it's literally like they become possessed and they're
Mm-hmm.
so Jekyll and Hyde. And it's like when you see it and have that intimate relationship with just that difference and that intensity of personality, like it's very it's very mind-blowing. You learn a lot about the human development and psychology of and the different sub-personalities that these people are harboring. And yeah, it's very insightful, and yet it's almost like they're becoming so rampant. They're, like I was saying, becoming so much more advanced because they've played this game for a long time. But now the entire world is kind of becoming a narcissistic, you know, reality. We're all becoming narcissists in our own way. Like we might be in that first phase narcissism, but it's like it's becoming normalized now.
Mm.
So these forces are gaining so much more power and control. And yeah, that's why I think it can be really dangerous right now, especially with these organizations and cults and basically these hidden agendas that are underneath the surface trying to confuse people and manipulate them and keep them, covered under a veil so that they don't wake up, that they're just zombies or pawns in this game of delusion.
Mm-hmm. Was there a point where somebody told you that a certain entity, or let's say God, goddess, or whatever, was working through you or working with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
The kind of the gears or the way that the agenda worked with the cult that I was involved in very much tied or inflated the Egyptian archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was told that I had different goddesses like Sekhmet and Serket and these Egyptian goddesses of dark sexual desires working through me, and that my sexuality was perverted, and that through my sexuality I had essentially given rise to the birth of more archonic deception on the planet, and that it was all me and these goddesses that I was contracted to that had created such darkness on this planet. And many other women were also brought into that. Yeah, it was all around the Egyptian goddesses, which was interesting. And it's fascinating because a lot of the work, like, it was spiritualized. We were praying to Mary Magdalene, we were praying to Yeshua, we were praying to Mother Mary and Joseph of Arimathea, and we believed that it was, that spirit, that beloved Mother, Father God, that was showering us with all this divine love, and we were devoting ourselves to this force, to this God, that, and receiving from this energy. But I really believe that it wasn't, the pure source God that we were receiving this almost heightened state of awareness from. It was these false gods that were keeping us trapped in that veil, and also feeding the leader false power and distorting his awareness, making him believe that, Thoth or whoever Egyptian god was coming through and channeling through him. And it was quite disturbing, the level of kind of false gods, I think, that were present in that whole formation of that cult. And because once I came out of it, I would say a prayer and ask for divine love, and it was right there. I didn't have to devote myself and pour my heart out and pour my soul out and give all my life force for that essence to receive love. I just had to sit, and there it was. And so that was kind of how I was able to also see the truth for what it was, and filter out the manipulations or the way that we were made to believe we were receiving divine love.
Who informed you that your sexuality is so distorted and that you brought on this mess and archonic attacks to the planet? And that's a wild guess. Was there a suggestion that by having sexual contact with the leader that could be healed?
I mean, it was him that said that.
Oh, okay.
And I think in relation to him, it was like, I'll help you heal your darkness.
Okay.
It was part of that alluring, this is what you've done, and I'm going to help you. And then when I couldn't, or I wouldn't do the practices right, or I wasn't doing enough work, I was wrong and I wasn't devoted enough to clear that from me, and I was shamed and, beaten down and wronged and betrayed. And yeah, it's interesting, because that's a lot of what he was projecting on me, was also, something that was taking over him in a way, that he was perverting his sexual energy and misusing his sexual energy and coming towards me. And, ethically, it was so wrong. He was my teacher. We were 20 years apart. It just, I was very young, 24, I think, 25. I think I was 24 when I was with him. And then I had turned 25 because we were together for a while. So yeah, it, even just that, you're 42, and I don't even know if he was being honest with his age. I don't actually know. He changed his name, his birth name was not the name that he was going by. His story, who knows if it was true. I know a lot of cult leaders will change their story. Carlos Castaneda actually changed his story and made people believe something that wasn't true, to lure people into his following and stuff. And so I often wonder, how old was he really, and what was really going on with his story. And yeah, who knows? But
Yeah. So for those who are sitting on the edge, thinking about, shall I go? Shall I stay? How am I going to do this? What would you tell them?
go,
Mm.
go,
Mm.
and protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I find a lot of times they'll try to go to the leader like I did and speak truth, and then they'll get lured back in through the charismatic, manipulative ways that the leaders have to, just try this and come back and I'll show you something different. And, don't listen to that. Don't listen. Come back to yourself and understand, what's truly going on. And if there's ever a red flag that's going off, listen to that and seek support. Study, the different manifestations of cult tactics and get to know what's happening. I think for me, just that in itself was a huge awakening for me, because I was able to see it. And as soon as you see it, and there's no turning back.
Mm.
And so if you're having questions, you're having doubts about the group, you're feeling yourself getting lost and stuck, then, seek support, grounded support outside of the group, and try to get out as best as you can and stick to it. Cut off all communications if you need to. Really focus on yourself and whatever support you need. I think that's, yeah, it can be very hard for people getting out, because it's kind of like you're in between worlds, and they'll try to pull you back in because you're their power source
Yeah.
and they're feeding on you energetically. And so if you feel like there's so many unknowns and you can't see, how you're going to survive, just know that the universe will catch you, that there's always a way out on into the other side. And there's so many people that have proven that. And so
Yeah.
having faith in oneself to get there, I think, is the biggest energetic piece that I can offer, is to really have faith in yourself to make it through.
Mm. And I think in the initial phases, let's say your parents, your friends, whoever could be assisting, they are far away. I think a lot of cities, they have like these helplines,
Mm-hmm.
where you can make first contact and explain your situation and that you are really in dire straits. And yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
then do that and take it from there.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And then heal all the wounds that even led you to become a part of that. Because there will be people that will try to lure you back in, especially if you're targeted in that way and are an empath and, have a certain connection to people. They will try and lure you back in, whether it's a narcissistic relationship or another
Mhm.
cult. It's really, really important that you take responsibility and heal those wounds within you, those holes in your essence that, essentially allowed those manipulations to get to you. I think that's also a big piece of the
Yeah,
puzzle.
yeah. But none of that can happen if you do not make that jump.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Because
make
you
it
will
jump.
you will not heal while you're in the cult. Mm-mm.
Yeah. If anyone's trying to break you down ever, Run
Mm.
the other way. Respect yourself enough. No
Mm.
one has any power over you. The age of the guru is dead. You know, the age of the Abrahamic God and this white God ruler is dead. You know, we're way past that now. We're
Mm.
all waking up to the God source that is within us and that
Mm.
we are. And if anyone tries to take you down that old paradigm, you know, hopefully your spirit will be strong enough to remind you what's truly there within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a very, very interesting conversation. I thank you so much for coming on, Kelsey.
Thank you for having me.
And we have to talk another time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So that was it, guys. Night flight for today. Take good care of yourselves and stay safe and sound. Bye bye.